You wake before the bell, the way you always do now. It is not a sound that wakes you. It is the absence of one. The particular hush of the small hours when the house has finally stopped moving and has not yet begun again, and the silence settles over your ears like a hand laid flat. You lie still beneath the thin blanket and the shawl you have spread on top of it for the extra warmth, and you do the thing you have learned to do in this house, which is to lie in a building full of people and hear nothing of yourself in it. The cold has reached your shoulders. It always does by this hour. You draw your knees up and tuck the shawl closer at your throat and breathe out slowly, watching the faint pale ghost of your breath rise and vanish into the dark above the bed. The gas is out. Gas out at 10, the card on the mantel says, in that careful upright hand, and so the room is black except for one gray rectangle where the street lamp 2 stories below throws its weak, uneven light through curtains that do not quite meet in the middle. You know this room now, in the dark, the way you know the inside of your own coat pocket. You could find every object in it without a candle. The iron bedstead, cold to the touch where your hand rests against the rail. The washstand, 3 steps away, with its jug that holds a pint when it is full, which it is not, because the water was carried up last night, and you have already used the half of it. The square of carpet, worn down to its backing in a path between the bed and the door, by feet that were not yours, by all the women who had this room before you, walking the same 3 steps to the same washstand, year after year, wearing the wool down to its threads. The grate, no wider than your 2 hands laid side by side, with no coal in it, and there will be no coal in this house until October. The card does not need to say so. And on the chair by the window, your work box, with the lid that has never sat quite flush, the lid your mother could never make close however she pressed it. You have learned in this house to live by the light of a single jet turned down to a bead of flame no larger than your thumbnail, and when even that is forbidden, by the light of a lamp that belongs to someone else out in the street, doing its work for no one in particular. Somewhere below you, the house speaks. It is never entirely quiet, this house. That was the first thing you learned in your first week here, and the thing that surprised you most. You had imagined, in the weeks before you came, lying awake in a different bed, in a different town, that to live alone would be to live in silence. You had braced for the silence the way you might brace for cold water, and instead you arrived to find that a house full of strangers is never silent at all. It only changes the kind of noise it makes. By day it is footsteps and doors, the scrape of the street door against its frame, the landlady's voice carrying up the well of the stairs, the clatter of the one shared kettle in the basement kitchen. But now, at this hour, the house makes its small and private sounds, the ones it keeps for itself. A cough through the wall to your left, twice, and then nothing. A bed frame complaining somewhere above as a body turns over in it. A tap that has not been properly closed, letting its slow thread of water down into a basin, drop by drop by drop. And the stair, the 4th stair from the top, the one that speaks, giving its small wooden complaint under a weight you do not recognize, and falling silent again, so that you lie there afterward, wondering who it was and where in the house they were going at such an hour, and whether they too were awake and listening to you. There are 11 other people sleeping under this roof tonight. You have counted them, the way you count everything now. and you do not belong to a single one of them. That is the strange arithmetic of this place, the sum that will not come out however you work it. You are closer here to other living people than you have ever been in your life, close enough to hear them breathe, close enough that the wall between your bed and the next is no thicker than the width of your 2 hands laid flat. You could knock on it, they would hear you. And yet there is no one in this house, on this landing, in this whole tall, narrow building full of sleeping strangers whose business it is to know whether you are well, or ill, or warm, or frightened, or here at all. You belonged to no household. In the town you came from, you had belonged to one whether you wished to or not. There a house meant the people in it, and the people in it meant 100 small obligations and intrusions. Your mother's voice through the floor, your father's cough you could read like a clock, the way a closed door meant a question and never an answer. You had wanted then to be free of all that. You had thought freedom would feel like air.
It does not feel like air. It feels like this. Like lying in the dark in a room 8 feet by 10, listening to 11 people you do not know, and understanding for the first time that you can be entirely surrounded and entirely alone in the same single moment, and that the 2 facts do not cancel one another out. They simply lie down side by side the whole night long and refuse to be reconciled. The house sleeps. The house does not. You turn over. The bed frame answers you, the same small iron complaint that someone above you made a moment ago, so that for a breath the house seems to be talking to itself, one sleeper to another, a language of springs and boards that means nothing and goes on all night regardless. You press your cold hands together between your knees and wait for the warmth to come back into them, and you think, as you do most nights, about the rent. The rent is due on Friday. It is Tuesday now, or it is, you suppose, already Wednesday in these small hours that belong to no proper day. 3 days, then. 3 days, and the careful upright hand on the mantelpiece will want its due, rent on Friday without exception, and you have it. You do have it. You have counted it twice and folded it into the corner of the workbox beneath the lid that will not sit flush. But you have it only just, only barely, with the narrowest margin between having it and not having it, and that margin is the hold of your freedom and the hold of your fear, folded together into the same small square of coins. The room is yours until the rent is due, and not 1 hour longer. That is the bargain. That is the only thing that makes the room yours at all. Not your name, which is on the rent book in the same upright hand as the card, Miss Naylor, 2nd floor back, but written in pencil, you have noticed, where the landlady's own notes are in ink. Pencil, because pencil can be rubbed out. You are on the rent book a thing that can be rubbed out and written over the very moment the Friday money fails to appear. The room does not know you. It has held a dozen women like you and will hold a dozen more, and it keeps no memory of any of them and asks none. There is one thing in this room the rent book does not know about.
It is in the workbox, beneath the folded coins, beneath the reels of thread, a letter, begun and not finished. 3 lines in your own hand, and then nothing, the rest of the page left white. You began it a fortnight ago. You have not been able to find the next sentence, and you are no longer certain, in the dark, whether the difficulty is that you do not know what to say, or that you know exactly what to say and cannot afford to say it. The lid does not quite close over it. Nothing in this house quite closes. And still you stay. You stay because there is nowhere else, and because nowhere else is, in its own hard way, a kind of answer, because a room that is yours only until Friday is still, until Friday, yours, and that is more than the town behind you ever offered. You lie in the cold and listen to the house breathe around you, close as a borrowed coat, full of people you will never know, and you let the small sounds settle over you one by one, the cough, the tap, the bed frame, the fourth stair, and, somewhere behind the wall, a single small shifting that might be a bird on a perch or might be nothing. Far off, a clock you cannot see strikes the half hour. You do not know which half of which hour. It does not matter. There is nothing you must do until the bell. The cold has reached your feet now. You draw them up. You close your eyes. The house sleeps. The house does not. And between those two facts, in the narrow dark space where they lie down together and refuse to be reconciled, you wait for morning, and you are not afraid, and you are not at peace, and you are exactly as alone as 11 sleeping strangers can make a person.
You know them by their sounds before you know them by their faces. That is how a house like this gives its people to you. Not all at once, not by introduction, but slowly, through plaster and floorboard, a body at a time. You have lived here 4 months now, and in 4 months the 11 strangers under this roof have become not friends, not even quite acquaintances, but something stranger and more intimate than either, a set of sounds you could name in the dark, a household you belong to entirely and not at all. There are a great many houses like this one in London. That is the part that is difficult to hold in the mind, lying here. On streets like yours, in rooms like yours, there are thousands of women doing exactly what you are doing tonight, renting a single room, alone, by the week, in a house full of strangers. A whole quiet city of women, the records barely trouble to count, each one listening through her own wall to people she will never properly meet. You are not rare, you are only solitary. The two things are not the same, and the house teaches you the difference every night. Begin with the wall to your left, because it is nearest, and because the cough behind it is the first thing you hear most nights and the last before the bell. That is Mrs. Tarrant, a widow, near 60, you think, though you have only her face on the landing to judge by, and the landing is dim. She has the room beside yours, the other second floor back, and between her pillow and yours is one wall the width of 2 hands. She keeps a canary in a cage by her window. You have heard it shift on its perch in the small hours, a single dry rustle of feathers. But here is the thing you cannot account for. The cage has no cloth over it. You saw that much through her open door once. And a canary in an uncovered cage should wake and sing at the first gray light. Hers does not. It waits. It waits until she has risen and moved about the room, and only then does it try its 3 notes, as though it has learned, as you have learned, that there are hours in this house when it is wiser to make no sound at all. You do not know what teaches a bird that. You think about it more than you would admit. Above you, directly above, so that his weight finds the same boards your ceiling is made of, is the man under the roof. You do not know his name. You have never learned it, and now too much time has passed to ask. But you know his step on the 4th stair as well as your own, and you know one fact about him that you wish you did not. He counts his coins on the washstand before he sleeps. You hear it through the ceiling most nights, the small, deliberate chink of coin set down upon coin, slow, twice over, the sound of a man checking a sum he already knows and hoping it has changed.
You know that sound because you make it yourself into the corner of your workbox on the nights before Friday. You have never seen his face clearly. You know the inside of his fear precisely. Then the sisters at the front, the large room, the good room, the two windows that look on the street. Pelham, you think the name is. You heard it called up the stairwell once. They work at a confectioner's, you are nearly sure, because they come home smelling of burnt sugar, a warm caramel ghost that hangs on the landing a full minute after their door has closed. The younger one laughs easily. You hear it through two walls, a sound with no words attached. But 3 nights ago the laughing stopped and has not come back, and there has been instead a low murmur very late, one voice and then the other, on and on past the gas hour, and you do not know what has happened in the good room with the 2 windows, and it is not your place to know, and you lie awake listening to the shape of a trouble you cannot name. On the ground floor, the 2 clerks, whom you know least because they leave before you and return after. You know them by pipe smoke caught in the stair carpet of a morning. Once one of them stood aside in the passage to let you by, touched his hat, said nothing. You said nothing, and that is the whole of your acquaintance with a man who sleeps each night 30 feet below you. And the others, the ones you have not yet sorted into faces, a name hath heard, a first-floor door that opens at an odd hour and closes very softly, as though softness were a thing that could be got away with. A tread on the stair that is none of the people you know. A house like this is always 1 or 2 souls you cannot account for, and you have stopped trying. They are part of the breathing now. They are part of the dark. 11 people. You have counted them so often the number has worn smooth, like a coin carried too long in a pocket. And here is what you turn over on the nights sleep will not come. Every one of them is doing exactly what you are. Mrs. Tarrant, awake behind her wall, knowing your sounds as well as you know hers. The man above, checking his coins over your ceiling. The sisters murmuring their unnamed trouble. All of you stacked in this tall, narrow house like letters in a sorting rack, each in your own slot, each close enough to touch and sealed entirely separate. 11 private solitudes, pretending by the accident of one roof to be a household. You belonged to no household, but you belonged, you suppose, to this, to the strange fellowship of the wall, the company of people who would know if you stopped making your sounds and would wonder for a night or 2 and would not come. That is the part you cannot decide how to feel about. If you were ill, truly ill, the kind that does not let you rise for the bell, Mrs. Tarrant would notice first. She would miss your bed frame, the small morning sounds of you washing in cold water from the half-full jug. She would notice your absence, the way you notice the absence of her second cough. But would she come? Would she knock on the wall the width of 2 hands, the wall you have both lain against for 4 months without once acknowledging? Or would she only lie there in the silence where your sounds should be and feel a shameful relief turn slowly into something colder? You do not know. You hope you never have cause to learn. And you understand, lying here, that every soul in this house is some other soul's open question, exactly as you are theirs. The man above turns over. His bed frame gives its iron complaint, and a moment later, as if in answer, the canary stirs behind the wall, one dry rustle, and is still. The tap drips. The house arranges its sleepers and breathes them in and out, and asks nothing of any of them but the rent on Friday. Somewhere below, the street door scrapes, a key that sticks, a pause, and then the 4th stair from the top, the one that speaks,
and you think before you can stop yourself with something almost like tenderness. There he is. The house sleeps, the house does not, and you lie in your slot in the sorting rack, one sealed letter among 12, and you listen to the others the way you might listen to family through a floor, if family were strangers and a floor were all you had. And still you stay.
There is an arithmetic you do in the dark, and you do it every night, though it never changes. You do it the way some people say their prayers, not because the words will alter anything, but because the saying of them is itself the thing, a rosary of shillings told over in the cold until the telling brings a kind of quiet. You lie on your back with your hands folded on the blanket, and you begin where you always begin, with the figure that is the whole foundation of your life in this city, 12 shillings a week. 12 shillings. That is what the draper pays you for 6 days behind his counter, from 8 in the morning until the shutters go up at 8 at night, and later on a Saturday, when the street is full and the gas in the shop is lit and the bolts of cloth must all be squared and re-squared before you are let go. 12 shillings a week, which is a little better than many girls get and a great deal worse than you once thought a person could be asked to live on. There are houses, the great drapers, the ones with their own dormitories above the shop, where a girl is paid less than this and made to live in, sleeping 4 to a room over the very counters she works, fined for sitting, fined for a torn glove, the cost of her board taken back out of her wage before she ever sees it. You do not live in. You chose not to when the choice was offered, and the choosing is why you are here, in a room 8 feet by 10, alone, doing arithmetic in the dark. So, 12 shillings comes in. Now you must let it out again, and you do this slowly, in the order the week demands. The rent first, because the rent is first in everything. 4 and 6 of your 12 gone before it is well in your purse, more than a third of everything you earn, handed over for the privilege of a room that is yours only until the next Friday asks the question again. You have heard there are rooms cheaper. You have also seen them. A room cheaper than 4 and 6 is a room where the damp comes through the wall in a black bloom, or where the lock does not hold, or where the woman of the house does not trouble to ask whether her lodgers are respectable. And a girl alone cannot afford the cheaper room, because the cheaper room costs her the one thing she has that the draper's 12 shillings cannot buy back. So, 4 and 6, you do not argue with it. That leaves 7 and 6. Now the eating. You are careful with the eating in a way that the well-fed would find it difficult to imagine, because for you it is not a matter of taste, but of distance, how far a thing can be made to go. Bread is the floor you stand on, a loaf is twopence halfpenny or thereabouts, and a loaf cut thin and watched is the better part of a week's breakfasts. Tea you buy in the smallest twist the grocer will sell, and you dry the leaves on the windowsill to use a second time, weak and brown and warm, which is the thing that matters, the warmth more than the strength. A pat of butter when you can, dripping when you cannot. A herring on a Saturday, because a herring is cheap and it is hot and it tastes of more than itself. A little cheese, a little bacon, kept on the sill where the cold will hold it, because there is no larder that is yours and no fire to spoil it. You can feed yourself, if you are careful, and you are always careful, on something near 3 shillings a week. You have got it down to 2 and 9 in a hard week. You know the price of everything you put in your mouth to the farthing, and you know it without thinking, the way you know your own name. 3 shillings for the eating, then. That leaves 4 and 6. But the 4 and 6 is not yours either, not really, because the 4 and 6 is where the rest of being a person hides, and being a person, you have discovered, is astonishingly expensive when you are poor. Coals when October comes and the grate can be filled. Candles or the gas money, because the dark is free, but you cannot live wholly in it. Soap. Boot blacking, because a draper's girl whose boots are not clean is a draper's girl who will not be a draper's girl much longer. Thread and needles, and the mending they are for, because a torn hem is a thing the customers see and the shop walker sees, and you cannot let it be seen. A penny now and then for the wash. The omnibus, never. You walk in all weathers, because 3 pence each way is a herring, is half a loaf, is a thing too dear to spend on your own tired feet. And what is left? Some weeks a shilling, some weeks 9 pence, some weeks, the bad ones, nothing. The 12 shillings spread so thin across the 7 days that the last day arrives with the purse already empty and Friday's rent only a promise you are making to yourself in the dark. That is the margin, 1 shilling folded into the corner of the workbox under the lid that will not sit flush against the week when there is none.
But the shilling is not the true danger, and you know it. The shilling is only what stands between you and a hard week. There is one thing that stands between you and the end of all the weeks, and it is not money at all. It is a word. It is your character. The draper has it, the good word, the written word, the line in his own hand that says Miss Naylor is honest, sober, civil to the customers, and was let go through no fault of her own. Without it, you are nothing in this trade. No other counter in London will take a girl who cannot produce her character, and the draper knows this, and so does every shop walker who has ever stood behind you while you measured out a yard of ribbon, watching. You can be turned off in a morning. A till that does not balance and need not be your doing, a customer who complains and need not be in the right, a slow week when the shop wants 1 girl fewer, and you are the girl. Turned off without a character, and the 12 shillings stop, and they do not start again, not here, not at the next shop, not anywhere that a respectable house would let its girls be seen. The character is the single thread the whole of you hangs by, and it is held, start to finish, in the hand of the man who pays you 12 shillings a week to hold it.
That is the thing the comfortable never understand about a girl like you. They think poverty is the not having. It is not. It is the nearness, the knowledge that the not having is 1 word away, 1 bad morning, 1 displeased look, and that the word is not yours to keep or to give. You are solvent the way a man is solvent who stands on a chair with a rope already round his neck, perfectly safe, perfectly upright, for exactly as long as nothing moves, and for exactly as long as the man holding the chair is content to go on holding it. And the strange part, the part you turn over longest, is that by the measure of the houses you pass on your walk to the shop, with the fires lit in 3 rooms at once, you are not poor at all. You are respectable. A young woman in clean boots with a room of her own and her rent paid to the day. And that is precisely the thing that costs you everything, because respectability is not a state you are in, but a thing you buy, weekly, at 4 and 6 for the room and clean boots and a mended hem and a good word kept warm in another man's pocket. And the moment any one of them fails, you simply are not it any more. There is no respectability laid by in the corner of the workbox. There is only the shilling and the word, and neither of them is quite yours. Above you, through the ceiling, the small, deliberate chink of coin set down upon coin. The man under the roof telling his own rosary, hoping as you hope that it has grown in the night. It has not. But you lie there and count along with him in the dark. Two strangers saying the same prayer over the same handful of shillings, and for a moment the wall between you is the thinnest it has ever been. The room is yours until the rent is due, and not 1 hour longer. You close the purse of your mind. 12 shillings in, 12 shillings out, a shilling and a word standing between you and the dark, and Friday 3 days off, and the money there, just barely there. And still you stay.
There is a letter in the workbox, and it has 3 lines on it, and it has had 3 lines on it for a fortnight. You know it is there the way you know a sore tooth is there, not constantly but in waves when something presses on it. You are not pressing on it now. You are only lying in the dark, listening to the house, and the knowledge of the letter rises up through the quiet the way the cold rises up from the floor, from underneath, without being asked. It is under the folded coins, it is under the reels of thread, the gray and the black and the white. It is at the very bottom of the box, beneath the lid that will not sit quite flush, and the not quite flush of the lid feels on these nights like the letter itself refusing to lie down and be still. You wrote the 3 lines on a Sunday, the one day the shop is shut, the one day the gas may be left a little longer, the one day there is light enough and time enough to do a thing that is not work. You had been meaning to write it for weeks. You had told yourself, walking home on the Saturday night with your feet aching and the burnt sugar ghost of the sisters on the stairs, that tomorrow you would sit down at the washstand with the box open and the pen ready, and you would write it, and it would be done, and the weight of the not having written it would finally lift. And you did sit down. You did open the box. You did dip the pen. And you wrote the salutation, and the first line, and the second, and the third, and then your hand stopped, all on its own, the way a horse stops at a thing in the road that the rider cannot yet see. You know who it is to. That has never been the difficulty. You could write the direction on the front of it with your eyes shut, the name, and under the name a street you have walked 1,000 times, and under that a town you have not seen in a long while and can still smell when you let yourself, wet wool and river damp and the particular gray of a northern sky. It is a real person at a real door in the place you came from, and they are alive, and they would open your letter if it came, and they would read it. That is the whole of the trouble. If it were a letter to no one, a thing written only to be written, your hand would not have stopped at all.
Nor is it the ordinary kind of letter, the kind a girl in your position is expected to send. It is not a letter asking for money. You would sooner go without than write that one, and you have gone without, and you will again. It is not a letter of news, the small, dutiful kind. I am well, the situation suits, the weather here is much as yours, that says nothing and costs nothing, and can be sent the moment it is dry. It is the other kind. It is the kind that changes a thing between two people that has stood unchanged for years, the kind that once read cannot be unread, the kind that asks the person at the far door to think differently of you, or to forgive a thing, or to know a thing you have let them not know for a long time. You are not certain, even now, which of those it is. You have written only 3 lines, but you know the 4th line waits on the far side of all of them, and that the 4th line is the door, and that your hand will not open it. It is not, you have decided over the fortnight, that you do not know what to say. The words are there. They have been there longer than the fortnight,
Longer if you are honest in the dark, where honesty costs nothing, than you have been in London at all. You have composed the whole of that letter 100 times on 100 walks to the shop and back, in the gray hours before the bell, in the long pauses behind the counter when the street is empty and the bolts of cloth are all squared, and there is nothing to do but stand and wait to be useful. The letter is written entire somewhere behind your eyes. It is only the putting it onto the page that your hand will not do. Because the page is different. A thing thought is not a thing said, and a thing said aloud, alone, in a room where no one hears it, is still not a thing written, and a thing written is not even the worst of it, because a thing written can still be burned, can still be torn small and dropped into the cold grate where the coals are not. No, the danger is not the writing. The danger is the sending. The danger is the moment the letter leaves your hand and passes into the box on the corner with the slot like a thin black mouth and is gone and cannot be called back and goes out across the country to a real door to do whatever a letter does when it arrives, which is to change something somewhere in a way you will not be able to see or stop or take again into your own keeping.
That is what your hand knows that your mind pretends not to. 3 lines are safe. 3 lines commit you to nothing. It is the 4th line, and the lines after it, and the folding, and the direction written on the front in a hand they would know, and the walk to the corner, and the thin black mouth that commit you to a thing you are not certain you can afford. Not in shillings. There is no arithmetic for this one. But it has a cost, the letter, as surely as the rent has a cost, and you have not yet been able to make yourself look squarely at the sum. So it stays at the bottom of the box, 3 lines long, under the coins and the thread, and the lid does not quite close over it. You think sometimes that everyone in this house has a letter like yours, not paper and ink perhaps, but a thing begun and not finished, a thing carried unsent. The man above, counting his coins, what is the sum for, if not some letter of his own, some fare or debt or passage he is saving toward and cannot yet bring himself to spend? Mrs. Tarrant and her canary that has learned to wait, what is the bird being kept silent for, if not some grief she has not finished grieving, some name she has not finished saying? The sisters at the front murmuring past the gas hour these 3 nights. Surely there is a letter in that room too, begun and not finished. A house like this is full of unsent letters. You are simply the only one who can feel the actual paper of yours at the bottom of an actual box, refusing to lie flat. You reach out in the dark without quite deciding to. The box is on the chair by the window, an arm's length from the bed, and you can find it without the gas. Your fingers know the cool wood of it, the small brass catch, the lid that lifts a ½ inch and then sticks. You do not open it. You only rest your hand on the lid, the way you might rest a hand on the shoulder of someone sleeping, to feel that they are there and warm and breathing, and to ask nothing of them. The letter is under your palm, through an inch of wood and a layer of coin and thread. You can almost feel the 3 lines of it through all of that, and the name on the front you have not yet written, and the town behind the name, wet wool and river damp, and a gray northern sky.
You will finish it. You tell yourself this, with your hand on the lid. You will finish it soon, when the rent is easier, when the week is kinder, when you have found the particular courage that the 4th line asks for and that you do not, tonight, possess. You have told yourself this every night for a fortnight, and every morning the letter has still been 3 lines long, and you have begun to understand dimly, in the way you understand things you would rather not, that soon is itself a kind of answer. that a letter you have meant to send for a fortnight and have not is a letter that some part of you has already decided about, and that the deciding is only waiting for the rest of you to catch up to it in the dark. You take your hand back. The lid stays as it was, lifted its stubborn half-inch. The cold has found your wrist where it left the blanket, and you draw it in. Somewhere below, the street door scrapes, the key that sticks, the pause, and then the fourth stair, the one that speaks. There he is. And you let the sound of him climbing settle over you, one more weight set down in the dark, one more sum that will not have changed by morning. The house sleeps. The house does not. And at the bottom of a box an arm's length from your hand, a letter you have written and cannot send waits under the coins, 3 lines long, its lid not quite closed, addressed in your mind if not yet on the page, to one real door in one northern town, and you lie beside it in the cold, the two of you unfinished together, and you do not reach for it again. And still you stay.
You remember the day you took this room, the way you remember very few days, not in a rush of feeling, but in objects laid out in order, the way you lay out the coins before the rent. It was a Thursday. You know it was a Thursday because the shop had let you go at noon that week for the stock taking, and you had the half day, and you had spent the morning of it walking streets you did not know, with a folded paper in your glove, 3 addresses copied in pencil from the cards in a stationer's window, 3 rooms to let that a girl alone might take without shame. The first was gone before you reached it. A card in the window said so. The second you did not go up to see because the woman who answered the door looked you over on the step in a way that told you everything the room would be, and you said, "Thank you, I am mistaken in the house," and went away with your heart going hard. The third address was this one. You remember the door. You remember it because you have opened it 1,000 times since, and it has never once opened easily. The same scrape against the same swollen frame, the same small resistance, so that even now, coming home of a night, your shoulder knows the door before your hand does. That first Thursday you did not know the trick of it, and you pushed too gently, and stood on the step a moment foolish, until a sound inside told you someone was coming, and the door was pulled in from within, and there was the landlady. She did not smile. You were glad of it later. A landlady who smiles on the step is a landlady with something to cover. This one looked at you the way the draper looks at a bolt of cloth come in from the warehouse, not unkindly, but to find the flaw, because there is always a flaw, and it is cheaper to find it now than after the money has changed hands. She looked at your boots, which were clean. She looked at your gloves, which were mended, but mended well on the inside where it does not show. She looked at your face for a moment longer than was comfortable, and you let her, because you understood that this was the price of the looking, that you were being read, and that to flinch from the reading was to fail it. "You'll be wanting the back room, 2nd floor," she said, not a question. She had read your boots and your gloves and your standing very straight on the step, and she had priced you to the shilling, and the back room, 2nd floor, was the room your shilling fit. 4 and 6 the week. Friday. I don't carry anyone. Not a day, not an hour. You said that would suit.
She took you up. You remember the stairs, narrower than they look from the street, turning twice, the carpet worn to its backing in the middle each tread where 100 feet had gone before yours. You remember her counting the rules off as she climbed, not as warnings, but as facts, the way you would tell a stranger the way to a street. No cooking in the rooms, no callers above the ground floor, none, and I'll know. Gas out at 10, rent on Friday. And then on the half landing, without turning round, the 4th stair from the top wants watching. It speaks.
You did not understand her then. You understand her now. It was the only thing she told you that day that was a kindness rather than a term, a small free piece of the house handed over before you had paid for any of it. The room, when she opened the door, was exactly what you have lain in ever since, 8 feet by 10, the iron bedstead stripped to its ticking, the washstand, the jug dry and turned upside down upon it against the dust, the square of carpet, the grate the width of 2 hands, swept clean and cold, the window with the curtains that did not meet, and the chair, the one by the window, on which there was nothing yet because you had not yet set the workbox down on it. The chair was only a chair that first Thursday, and did not yet hold anything that could not lie flat. She stood in the door while you looked. She let the room be what it was, and watched you let it be what it was, and you think now that you passed some final part of her examination in that moment, that a girl who needed the room to be more than it was would have been a girl who could not pay for it long. You looked at the cold grate and the dry jug and the bed stripped to its ticking, and you did not pretend it was anything, and you said, "Yes, I'll take it." Then the rent book. She had it downstairs on a shelf in the passage, a fat, soft, cornered book that had held a great many names before yours. She opened it on the hall table and dipped the pen and wrote the date and the room, 2nd floor back, in ink, in that careful, upright hand you would come to know from the card on the mantel. And then she turned the pen and held it out to you, handle first, for your own name, and you took it, and you wrote Edith Naylor, and you saw as you wrote it that she had set down everything else in ink and left your name to be written in pencil.
You did not understand it at first. You thought, foolishly, that the pen had drawn dry, or that pencil was what she gave to new lodgers until they proved themselves. And then you understood, with your name still gray on the page, pencil does not dry, that was the whole of it, that the ink was for the things that stayed. The date stayed, the room stayed, the room would be here when you were not. Only the name was written in the soft gray that a thumb could lift, because only the name was the part of the arrangement the house expected to change. You were the variable. You were the entry that would be rubbed out and written over the first Friday the 4 and 6 did not appear. And here is the thing you did not see that Thursday, and see only now, lying in the dark with the box an arm's length from your hand. The first thing you ever wrote in this whole city was your own name in pencil, a thing made to be erased. And the thing you cannot write, the thing your hand will not do, is a letter in ink, a thing that cannot be lifted with a thumb, that stays. You have been, since that Thursday, a girl written in pencil who is trying to find the courage to write one thing in ink. You did not know, handing back the pen, that the two would ever rhyme. They rhyme now. They rhyme every night. You handed back the pen. You paid the first week, 4 and 6, out of the purse you had counted twice on the omnibus you had not taken, and the room was yours until Friday, and not 1 hour longer.
That first night, you did not sleep. You lay on the ticking with your coat over you, because the bedding was your own to bring, and you had not yet brought it, and you listened to the house make all the sounds you had not yet learned to name. The cough through the wall, you did not know it was Mrs. Tarrant then, it was only a stranger, coughing close. The bed frame above, the tap, and very late, the street door and the key that stuck, and a heavy foot on the stairs that made the 4th tread and make it speak, and you lay rigid in the dark, a stranger among strangers, with no notion yet that you would come in time to wait for that exact sound, and to feel something almost like tenderness when it came. You remember thinking that first night, "I have done it. I am alone. This is the thing I wanted." and you remember that the thought did not warm you, and that you waited for it to, and that it did not, and that you fell asleep at last, still waiting, with your coat over you and your boots by the door and your name in pencil at the foot of the stairs. The workbox came later, the next Sunday, carried across the city on your lap. The bedding came, the reels of thread, the small life you have made on the chair and the washstand and the windowsill, the life that can be packed again in an afternoon and leave no mark. But the room itself, the bargain of it, the pencil and the ink, that was all there from the first Thursday, complete, waiting for you to understand it. The house sleeps, the house does not, and you lie in the room you took on a Thursday with your name in pencil at the foot of the stairs, and you know now what the landlady knew then, that the room was never going to be yours, only lent, only ever until the next Friday asked again. And still, you stay.
There is a way to do everything quietly, and you have learned all of it. This is the knowledge the house has given you that you did not ask for and would not now give back, the knowledge of how to live without being heard. It is not a thing you decided to learn. It came the way the cold comes, a little at a time, from underneath, until one night you noticed that you had not made a single sound in an hour, and that the not making of it had become as natural to you as breathing. A girl who shares one wall with a sleeping widow and one ceiling with a sleeping man learns the procedure of a quiet hour whether she means to or not. And so you will show it to yourself now in the dark, step by step, the way you go over it most nights, not because you must do any of it at this hour, but because the going over is itself a kind of rest, a rosary of small motions told over until the telling smooths you toward sleep. Begin with the rising, since that is where the day begins, though it is hours off yet. When the bell goes, the house bell, down in the passage, that the landlady rings once and does not ring twice, you will not start up. You have learned not to start. To start is to make the bed frame cry out, and the bed frame heard at that hour is a discourtesy to Mrs. Tarrant through the wall, who will not have slept well, who never sleeps well, and who has the right at least to the last gray minutes before her own day takes her. So you will rise the way you have taught yourself, slowly, rolling rather than sitting, your hand flat on the iron rail to take your weight off the springs, so that the bed lets you go with no more than a long, low sigh instead of a cry. You have practiced this. You are proud of it in the small, private way you are proud of the things no one will ever know you can do. Then the floor. The floor is cold, and the floor speaks, like the stair, in its own places. There is a board near the washstand that gives under a full step, and you have mapped it, the way you have mapped every loud thing in the room, so that your bare feet know the silent path between the bed and the window without you having to think it. Heel down soft, then the ball of the foot, never the flat slap of a whole sole at once. You cross the room like a thing crossing ice. The water next. The jug holds a pint when it is full, and it is not full because you carried it up the night before and used a half of it, and the half that is left has stood all night and taken the cold of the room into itself, so that when you tip it into the basin, it is colder than the air. There is no help for that. There is no fire, and there will be no fire until October, and a girl who waits for warm water is a girl who waits forever. So you wash in the cold, and you have a procedure for that too. The cloth wrung out so it does not drip, because a drip into the basin at that hour is as loud as a word. The face first, while the cloth still holds a little of what warmth your hands have lent it, the back of the neck, the hands themselves last, because the hands can bear it. You do not gasp. You learned not to gasp the first week,
the way you learned not to start. The cold goes into you, and you let it, and you do not give it the satisfaction of a sound. The dressing is done mostly in the dark or by the gray of the window if the morning has got that far. You lay your clothes out the night before. This is the whole secret of dressing quietly, that the work is done the evening before when sound does not matter. The stockings rolled ready, the boots set toe out by the chair, the dress hung where your hand will find it. You dress in an order you do not have to think about, because thinking is slow and the cold is quick. The shift, the stockings, the petticoat, the dress, the boots last, and laced sitting on the edge of the bed with your weight kept forward off the springs. The boots are the one part that cannot be made silent. Leather has its own small voice, and so you do the boots last when the rest of the house is stirring too, and your one honest sound is lost among the waking sounds of the others.
And then the hair. The hair is the long part, the patient part, and you do it at the little glass propped on the washstand by whatever light there is, with the pins held in your lips so that your hands are free. You have done it so many mornings that your fingers do it without you, the parting, the smoothing, the twist, the pins set one by one. It is the one part of the procedure that is not about silence at all. It is about the counter. A draper's girl is the cloth she stands beside. She must be smooth and plain and exact and give the customer nothing to look at but the goods. So you make yourself smooth in the gray light, pin by pin, and the girl who looks back at you out of the little glass is the girl the shop requires, and you have learned to make her without quite looking at your own face at that hour, because to look too long at your own face at that hour is to ask it questions it cannot answer before the bell. This is the procedure of the morning. But the procedure of the night is the one you are really telling over now, because it is the night you are in. The coming home first, the door with its scrape that your shoulder knows, the stairs in the dark, the fourth tread that you yourself must miss, stepping over it the way you would step over a sleeping cat, so that the one who taught you of it is not woken by you in turn. The gas, turned up only to the bead, only long enough to find the things you need, then down again because the gas is dear and the gas is watched and the dark is free. The cold supper eaten standing at the window because there is no table and a chair drawn up to nothing is a lonelier thing than standing. The bread, the scrape of butter or the dripping, the cold tea kept from the morning, made to last, the crumbs caught in your palm and not let fall. The laying out of the morning's clothes, the setting of the boots toe out, the carrying up of the water for the day to come if you have the strength for the stairs again, the small accounting, the purse, the coins told over once into your palm and folded away into the corner of the box that does not quite close, and then the gas out all the way, and the room gone to the one gray rectangle of the window, and the cold coming up from the floor, and the getting into bed by the same slow roll you will use to get out of it, so that the springs sigh once and are still.
There is one thing in all your life here that has no procedure, and you come to it now, the way you come to it every night, because it is the only motion you have never been able to make smooth. The letter. You can rise without a sound. You can wash in cold water without a gasp, dress in the dark by feel, cross a speaking floor on the silent path, step over a stair so as not to wake a man you have never met. You have made a craft of every small act a body must perform until there is not one of them left that can betray you. But the letter you cannot file into any of it. There is no quiet way to write the fourth line. There is no rolling off the springs, no heel down soft, no laying it out the night before that makes the thing easy and unheard. It is the one act that refuses to become procedure, that stays every night as loud and unmastered as it was the first Sunday. And so you do with it the only thing you know to do with a sound you cannot make safely, which is not to make it at all. You leave it at the bottom of the box, 3 lines long, under the coins you have just told over, and you fold the lid down over it as far as it will go, which is not all the way, and you let it be the one unquiet thing in a life you have otherwise taught to make no noise. Then the lying in the dark, which is where the procedure ends, because there is no procedure for the lying in the dark. That is the 1 hour the house cannot teach you to do quietly, because it asks no sound of you at all. Only the listening, only the company of the cough and the canary and the tap and the 4th stair, only the waiting for a sleep that comes, most nights, the way the warmth comes back into your hands, slowly, from somewhere you cannot see, after you have stopped expecting it. You have made a whole craft of being unheard. You wonder sometimes, doing it, what it is for. The house does not thank you for your quiet. Mrs. Tarrant does not know the care you take on the bed frame for her sake, any more than you truly know the care she may take for yours. The man above does not know you step over the 4th stair so as not to wake him, just as he, perhaps, does not know you wait for him to wake it. It is a courtesy paid in the dark to people who will never see it, a whole language of consideration spoken by everyone in the house and heard by no one, each of you tiptoeing for the sake of the others all night in the belief that you tiptoe alone. That is the quiet hour. That is the procedure of it. And it is, you think, the truest thing this house has made of you. Not the loneliness which the town behind you also had, but this, the care, the endless soft care given to strangers, expecting nothing, making no sound. The house sleeps, the house does not. And you go over the procedure one more time in the dark, the rising and the washing and the dressing and the coming home, smoothing yourself toward sleep with the rhythm of your own small motions, all of them quiet, every one of them mastered, save the single unquiet thing folded under the lid that will not close. And still you stay. There is a smell that the cold of this room can still call up if you let it, and it is not a London smell at all. It is wet wool and river damp and wood smoke held low under a gray sky, the smell of the town you came from, the smell of a place where the cloth was not sold over a counter, but made from the raw fleece up by hands you knew. You are not there. You have not been there in a long while. But the cold comes up through this floor the same way the cold came up through the floor of the house you grew up in, and the body does not know the difference between one cold and another. And so on certain nights the cold carries you backward, all the way back to Norwich and to the years before any of this. You let it tonight. The drift is the one journey that costs nothing. You were a weaver's family in a weaver's sea, and that is a thing with a history longer than your father or his father, longer than the house, longer than the loom. For hundreds of years, Norwich had made its name on worsted cloth. The city had been one of the great weaving towns of the whole country. Its wealth spun out of fleece on 10,000 looms in 10,000 upper rooms like the one you grew up in. The wide windows set close along the wall, the weavers' windows, made to catch every hour of the northern day, were built into the houses themselves, generations before you, because the whole city was built around the work. You did not know as a child that you were living inside the tail end of something old and dying. You only knew the sound of it, because you remember the sound of the loom more than almost anything, the great patient clack and beat of it all day, so steady that the house felt wrong without it, so steady that you learned to sleep through it as a baby and could not later sleep in the silence when it stopped. The loom was the heartbeat of the house, and in the years you were growing, that heartbeat was failing, not your father's alone, but the whole city's all at once. The power looms had come to the great mills of the north, in Yorkshire and Lancashire, and they could make the cloth faster and cheaper than any man at any hand loom in any upper room like the one you grew up in. And one by one, the orders that had kept Norwich for 5 centuries went north to the machines. It was not a thing your father did wrong. It was a thing that was done to him and to every weaver on the street, and to a whole city of them, quietly, over years, a way of life that had stood since before anyone could remember, ending not in a single day, but in a long, slow silence, room by room, loom by loom, all across the town.
You remember your mother in that failing more than your father. Your father grew quiet as the work grew thin. A man's pride is in his trade, and when the trade fails him, he does not know where to put himself. And your father took to standing at the weaver's windows, looking out at a street that no longer brought him work. But your mother did not go quiet. Your mother took in mending, and then took in more of it, and sat in the gray light of those wide windows with her needle going where the shuttle no longer did, and kept the house on the thread of it, literally on the thread. It is from her you have the careful hands. It is from her you have the mending done on the inside where it does not show, the reels of gray and black and white, the knowledge of how to make a thing last past the point where it has any right to. Everything the draper values in you, everything that keeps your name in the rent book one more Friday, you learned in that upper room, at your mother's side, in the years the loom was going silent across a city. And it is to your mother that the letter is addressed. There, you have let yourself think it, here in the deep cold, further from London than you have let yourself drift in weeks. The name on the front of the letter you cannot send is your mother's name. The northern door is her door, the same house, the same upper room, the weaver's windows, though the loom is gone now, sold at last in the worst of the years for less than the wood of it was worth. She is still there. She is older. She sits, you suppose, in the same gray light, with the same needle, keeping herself now on the mending the way she once kept all of you. And between you and her there is a thing that has not been said, a thing that has stood unsaid since the day you left, the day you took the few shillings that could be spared and the character your old situation had given you and got on the coach for London, against her wish, against her wanting you near, because the city had no work left in it for a girl, and you would not sit and watch another loom go silent.
You did not part badly. That is the thing you must be fair about in the cold, where fairness costs nothing. There was no quarrel, no door slammed, no hard word you could point to and say, there, that is the wound, that is the thing the letter must heal. It was quieter than that, and worse than that, because a quarrel can be mended with a quarrel's apology, and this cannot. What passed between you was only a silence, her wanting to say a thing she did not say, and you knowing she wanted to say it, and being glad, in your cowardice, that she did not say it, because if she had said it, you might not have been able to go. You climbed onto the coach with the unsaid thing still unsaid on both sides, and the coach took you south, and the unsaid thing came with you, and it has been with you ever since, 3 lines long at the bottom of a box. You know now what the letter is. You have known really since the first Sunday.
It is not a letter of news, and it is not a letter asking for money. It is the letter that says the thing that was not said on the day you left, that says you understand now what it cost her to let you go and not hold you, that says you are sorry for the gladness you felt at her silence, that says in the fourth line, the line your hand will not write, a thing a daughter says to a mother only once and cannot take back, and must mean entirely or not write at all. That is why the fourth line is the door. That is why 3 lines are safe and the fourth is not. You are not afraid she will not forgive you. You are afraid she will. Afraid of what it will open in you to be forgiven across all that distance by letter when you cannot be there to be held after. The loom is gone. The windows are the same. The gray light is the same. And somewhere in it your mother sits and mends, the last of a trade a whole city has forgotten how to practice, and does not know that her daughter lies awake in a let room in London with a letter to her 3 lines long, going over the smell of wet wool in the cold, drifting home the only way she lets herself, backward in the dark where no coach is needed and no fare must be paid, and the door is always still open because you have never quite let yourself walk through it.
You wonder if she lies awake too. You wonder if the cold comes up through her floor the way it comes up through yours, and carries her forward the way it carries you back, to a daughter in a city she has never seen, in a room she cannot picture, doing she does not know what. You wonder if there is a letter at her end too, 3 lines long that she cannot finish. You think there might be. You think that may be the truest thing 2 people who love each other and cannot say so ever come to. 2 unsent letters in 2 cold rooms in 2 towns, each waiting for the other to be braver first. The smell fades, the way it always fades, because the room is not really Norwich, and the cold is only London cold after all, and the loom that was the heartbeat of a house, of a whole city of houses, has been silent now for years and will not start again. You come back the way you came, slowly, up through the wet wool and the gray light, into the dark of the let room, and the sound of the tap and the cough through the wall, and the 4th stair waiting to be woken. But you bring something back with you this time, the way you sometimes do from the deep drift. You bring back her face in the gray light, bent over the mending, and you understand, holding it, that the letter is not really for the day you left at all. It is for now. It is for her, older, in the same light, with less time in front of her than behind, and that the 4th line, the line you cannot write, gets harder to write with every Friday that the rent book takes your name in pencil and gives it back, and easier at the same time to regret forever if you wait too long. The house sleeps. The house does not. And you lie in a London room with the smell of a northern town fading out of the cold, and a letter to your mother 3 lines long at the bottom of a box, and the knowledge brought back from the drift of exactly who is waiting at the far end of the silence. And still you stay.
There is a sentence written about you, and the man who wrote it never knew your name, and he wrote it before you were born. You did not always know this. You came to it the way you come to most hard things, sideways, by accident, in a moment you were not braced for. There was a book passed round the back of the shop one slack afternoon, a cheap reprint of a thing first set down years before, and one of the other girls read a piece of it aloud to the rest, half mocking the way the young mock a thing that frightens them. And you listened, squaring the bolts of cloth you did not need to square, and you understood before she had finished the paragraph that the man who wrote it had been writing about you.
Not a girl like you, the exact shape of the drop beneath your feet. His name was Henry Mayhew, and what he did was simple, and almost no one had done it before him. He walked the city, and he asked the poor to speak, and he wrote down what they said. Not what the comfortables supposed about the poor, not what the sermons said of them, or the pamphlets, or the men who made laws for them without ever climbing their stairs. He went to the people themselves, the costermongers, the mudlarks, the crossing sweeps, the dustmen, and he set their own words on the page, plainly, with the figures of what they earned, and what they paid, and what was left, which was the part that no one had wanted written down. And among all of them, he went to the needlewomen. The needlewomen, the women who sewed, the women who did for their whole living the thing your mother did in the gray light of the weaver's windows to keep your family on the thread of it, the thing your own careful hands can do, the mending on the inside where it does not show, the seam that lasts. He found them in their thousands across the city, bent over shirts and slops and fine work alike, and he did the thing he always did. He asked them what they earned, and he wrote down the sentence that the figures made. And the sentence was this, that a woman could not live by her needle. Not could not live well, could not live. He set down the prices plainly, the way he set down everything. So many pence for a shirt that took so many hours, the thread to be bought out of that, the candle to see by bought out of that, the rent out of what was left, until the sum came out again and again, in interview after interview, below the line at which a human body can be kept alive.
There was one in particular. The girl in the back of the shop read her out, and you have never been able to unhear her. A woman who made shirts, fine shirts, full-fronted, the kind a gentleman wears, and was paid, Mayhew set it down to the farthing, a few pence for each, and could finish, working from the first light to past midnight, working until her eyes ran and the candle was a stub, perhaps 3 of them in a day. Out of that came the cotton she sewed with. Out of that came the candle. Out of that came the rent for the corner of the room she shared with others like her. And what was left at the end of it, Mayhew did the arithmetic in plain figures and let the figures speak, was not enough to feed one woman, let alone the child she had, the child she mentioned in passing, the way you might mention the weather, because to her it was not a tragedy, but a fact, a thing in the sum like any other. I do not get a quarter enough to live on, she told him, in her own words, and he wrote it down exactly. And that is the sentence. That is the one you carry. Not a statistic, a woman, at a candle, with a child, saying plainly that the honest work of her hands did not come to enough to keep either of them, and saying it without weeping, because she had no time to weep, and the weeping would not have raised the price of a shirt. And so Mayhew wrote down the other thing, the thing that made the book notorious, the thing the girl in the shop read aloud half mocking because the only other thing to do with it was weep. He wrote down what such women told him they did to make up the shortfall the needle left. They told him, plainly, in their own words, that they could not live by sewing, and that what the sewing did not earn, the street did. Respectable women, women who wanted nothing in the world but to keep themselves by honest work, who took up the needle precisely because it was the honest thing, the decent thing, the thing a woman could do alone in a room without shame, and who found when the sums were done that the honest thing did not pay enough to keep them honest, and that the gap between what the needle earned and what a life cost had to be closed somehow by someone in the dark, or else they died.
That is the drop beneath your feet, set down in plain figures, years before you were born. And you understand, lying here, exactly where you stand in relation to that woman with the candle and the child. You are 1 rung up, 1. The draper's 12 shillings a week, the wage you do your nightly arithmetic over, the wage that leaves you a single shilling's margin in a good week and nothing in a bad one. That wage is the whole of the distance between you and her. And the thing that holds you on that one rung is not the wage at all. It is the word, the character, the good word kept warm in the draper's pocket. Take that away. Let the till come up short through no fault of yours. Let a customer complain who is not in the right. Let the shop want one girl fewer on a slow week, and let you be the girl. And the 12 shillings stop, and the counter is closed to you everywhere a respectable house can see, and what is left, what has always been left, what was left for the woman with the candle, is the needle. And the needle does not pay enough to live. Mayhew proved it. He proved it with figures before you were born, and the figures have not changed. You have the careful hands. That is the part that turns in you longest here in the cold. The very skill that keeps you respectable, the mending learned at your mother's side, the seam on the inside, the thing the draper values in you, is the same skill that one bad morning from now would be the only thing standing between you and the woman at the candle. Your hands could keep you respectable behind a counter, or they could keep you barely alive at a needle that does not pay enough to keep you alive. The same hands, the same skill your mother used to hold a failing house together in a dying weaving town. There is no third thing your hands know how to do. There is the counter, and there is the needle. And under the needle is a sentence in Henry Mayhew's plain figures, and a woman saying, "I do not get a quarter enough to live on." And you have heard her, and you cannot unhear her. From today's view, this looks like one woman's hard luck. A girl on a thin wage, a needlewoman on a thinner one, a sad chapter of a sad century, safely closed. From their view, it was a trap with the jaws filed smooth. Be honest, they were told. Keep yourself by decent work. And a woman who does keep herself by the most decent work there is, the quiet, solitary, blameless work of the needle, is delivered by that very decency to a wage that cannot keep her, and then blamed by the same people who set the price of a shirt for whatever she does to close the gap. And that's what's so chilling. The honesty was the snare. The decency was the drop. The system did not punish the women who failed to be respectable. It punished most surely of all the ones who tried hardest to be.
You are, at this hour, one rung above a sentence Henry Mayhew wrote in 1851. You belong to it the way you belong to the rent book and the fourth stair and the box that will not close. It is the floor under the whole arrangement of your life, and you can feel it through everything the way you feel the cold come up through the boards. And yet, and this is the thing you hold, finally, turning down the lamp of the thought, Mayhew did one mercy, writing it. He wrote her words down. Before him, the woman at the candle would have gone into the dark uncounted, unrecorded, her name and her figures and her plain account of what the needle did not pay, vanishing as completely as the 4 hours between midnight and 4 vanish from the record of this city every single night. He could not save her. He could not change the price of a shirt, but he could refuse to let her go unwritten. He could set her own sentence on a page where the comfortable would, at last, have to read it. And someone did read it. A girl in the back of a shop years later read it aloud, half mocking because mockery was the only roof she had against it. And another girl, squaring bolts of cloth, heard it and understood and has not forgotten, and is repeating it now in the dark to no one, so that it is said once more. That is what a written sentence can do that an unwritten life cannot. It can be heard again. The house sleeps, the house does not, and you lie one rung above a sentence a man wrote before you were born, with your careful hands folded on the blanket, the hands that keep you, the hands that could undo you. And somewhere at the bottom of the box, a letter to your mother waits, 3 lines long, written in the same hand that learned its care from hers. And still you stay.
Tonight, you take it out. You do not decide to exactly, any more than you decided any of the other nights not to. But the cold is the same cold, and the house is making its same small sounds, and somewhere in the going over of the procedure your hand has found the chair instead of the blanket, and the brass catch instead of the rail, and the lid that lifts its half-inch and sticks. And then, because tonight your hand does not stop, the lid that lifts the rest of the way, all the way, for the first time in a long while, with the small, dry complaint of a thing unused to opening. You light the gas, only to the bead, only enough. And there it is, under the coins you told over an hour ago, under the reels of gray and black and white, at the very bottom where it has lain a fortnight and longer, the folded paper, 3 lines long, with your mother's name waiting to be written on the front of it, and not yet written. You lift it out. It weighs nothing. That is the thing that has always undone you about it, that a thing which has sat on your chest every night for weeks weighs in the actual hand less than a reel of thread. You unfold it. The 3 lines are where you left them, in your own careful hand, the hand she taught you. Dear Mother, I have been a long time writing to you. There is a thing I have wanted to say since the morning I left, and have not. 3 lines, the salutation and the admission and the promise of a 4th line that the 3 have spent a fortnight refusing to keep. You read them over. They are good lines. They are true, and they stop exactly at the lip of the thing, the way you stop at the top of the 4th stair, the way the whole city stops at the edge of the 4 dark hours, present and breathing and going no further into the dark than it must. You take up the pencil, not the pen. You notice this even now, even here. Your hand has reached past the pen for the pencil, the erasable thing, the rent book thing, the gray that a thumb can lift, as though some part of you means to write the 4th line in a hand that can still be taken back. You let it. You have bargained yourself this far on smaller mercies than that. And then, in the gas bead light, in pencil, under the 3 lines that have waited for it so long, you write the 4th. I have always known you let me go because you loved me, and not because you did not, and I have been ashamed all this time that I was glad to be let go, when going was the cruelest thing I could have done to you, and the only thing I could do for myself. There, it is written. The thing that was not said on the morning of the coach is on the page at last, in gray pencil, in a cold room, 4 lines long.
You read it back, and the reading of it does the thing you were afraid of, and braver things than you knew. It does not break you. It is worse than that, and better. It simply makes true, out loud, on paper, the thing that has been true and unsaid for years, that there was no version of your life in which you did not wound her. To stay was to sit beside her and watch the looms go silent, and become in time another mouth she could not feed, another grief in the gray light. To go was to take yourself out of her reach forever, to leave her older and alone in the same room with the same needle and no daughter's step on the stair. Both were a wound. You chose the wound that let you live. And you see her now,
the way you have refused to let yourself see her for a fortnight. The morning of the coach. She did not weep. That is the part you have carried. She did not weep, and she did not say the thing she wanted to say, and you were glad of both. But her hands. You see her hands. She had taken your collar between her finger and thumb, the way she took a seam to judge it, the careful hands you have inherited, and she had smoothed it flat against your coat, one small motion, the last work those hands ever did on you, and then she had taken them away and folded them in front of her apron and held them there, very still, so that they would not reach for you again. That is the image. Not a word, not a tear. Two careful hands smoothing a collar and then folding themselves away, on purpose, to let you go. You have spent a fortnight unable to look at it. You look at it now. From today's view, this looks like a small thing. A daughter who moved away for work, a letter home she was slow to write, the most ordinary story there is. From her view, on the morning of the coach, it was the last service those hands would do you, performed perfectly, and then withheld on purpose so the withholding would not stop you. And that's what's so chilling. That love, real love, the kind that lets a child go for the child's own sake, can ask the hands that raised you to smooth your collar one last time and then fold themselves still, to do the cruelty as the kindness, and call it nothing, and not weep, so that you could climb onto the coach without the weight of her wanting you to stay. She gave you the going. Her hands gave it. And the 4 lines of pencil have spent a fortnight trying to say thank you and forgive me to those folded hands in the same breath, because they are, it turns out, the same word.
So now it is written, 4 lines, and you sit with it in the bead of gas, and you understand that the writing was never the hard part. You knew that on the first Sunday. The hard part is the corner and the thin black mouth, and the morning you would have to carry it down the speaking stairs and out the scraping door and across the city and feed it into the slot and let it go where it cannot be called back, to a door in a dying weaving town, to an older woman in the same gray light who will open it and read your 4th line and be, what? Forgiven? Undone? Made glad? Made to weep alone in the upper room at last, with no daughter there to hold her after, exactly as you have feared all along? You do not know. That is the whole of it. You will never know until it is past calling back, and the not knowing is the 5th line, the one no pencil writes, the one that has kept the other 4 at the bottom of a box. You fold it again, along the same creases. Paper remembers its folds, the way the body remembers a cold, the way the stair remembers the foot, back into the shape it has held so long. You do not tear it, you notice that too. A fortnight ago you told yourself a written thing can always be burned, can be torn small and dropped in the cold grate. Tonight the grate is as cold as ever, and your hands do not move toward it. You are past tearing it. You have written the 4th line. Some bridge is behind you now, even with the letter unsent. You only cannot yet walk the last of it. So you do the thing you have done every night, the thing you understand now you may do for many nights more. You put it back, under the reels, under the coins, to the bottom of the box, and you turn the gas down from its bead to nothing, and the room goes to the one gray rectangle of the window, and you lie back into the cold with the letter beneath your hand through an inch of wood, 4 lines long now, not 3, finished now, and still unsent, the writing done, and the sending not, the bravest and the most cowardly thing you own, folded together along the same creases, an arm's length away. And you find, lying there, that something has changed and nothing has. The weight is the same weight, but it is a different weight now, not the weight of a thing you cannot say, but the weight of a thing you have said and cannot yet send, which is a lighter and heavier thing at once. You have caught up to yourself, the way you knew on the first Sunday you one day would. The deciding is done, only the doing waits. And the doing will keep, you tell yourself. One more Friday, one more week, until the rent is easier and the courage is found. And you hear, even as you tell yourself, the old soft lie in it. And you let the lie be a blanket one more night, because some nights the lie is the only warm thing in the room. The house sleeps. The house does not. And at the bottom of a box, an arm's length from your hand, a letter to your mother waits, 4 lines long now, and folded along its creases, finished and unsent, the thing you have written and cannot yet let go. And you lie beside it in the cold, the 2 of you finished together, and neither of you gone. And the 4th stair below stays silent, because tonight there is no one left to come. And still you stay.
It is not all hardness, this life. You would not have yourself think so, lying here. A life made only of cold water and pencil and the rung below would be a life no one could bear. And people do bear this one. You bear this one. And the reason you can is that the dark hours hold their mercies too. Small ones, easy to miss, given by no one and asked for by nobody, but real and warm and yours. You have learned to count them the way you count the coins, told over slowly into the palm of the mind, and you have learned that the counting of them is itself a kind of warmth, the way the going over of the procedure is a kind of rest. There are 3 you come back to, always the same 3, in the same order. Let them be the last thing tonight. Let the ache of the letter go quiet, and let the 3 small mercies come. The first mercy is the warmth of the bed, once you are finally in it. It is a small thing, and it is not a small thing. The room is cold, the floor is cold, the water in the jug is colder than the air. Everything in the procedure of the night is cold, and you move through all of it braced against the cold, the washing, the dressing down, the laying out, and then at the very end, when the gas is out and the clothes are laid and the letter is back in its box, you get into the bed, and the bed is cold too at first. The sheets take the breath out of you. For a moment it is the coldest part of the whole day, that first lying down, and the body wants to protest it. But you have learned the trick, and the trick is only patience. You lie still, curled small, knees drawn up, hands tucked between them, your breath slow, and you wait, and the warmth comes. Not from anywhere outside, from you. Your own body, given a little time and a little stillness, fills the small pocket of the bed with its own heat until the sheets that took your breath are the one warm thing in the whole cold room, a pocket of warmth exactly the size of you, made by you, for you, out of nothing but your own patient staying still. There is no fire in this room, and there will be none until October, but there is this, every single night, no matter how thin the week, no matter how hard the cold, the bed gives you back your own warmth, and it is enough. That is the first mercy, and you are grateful for it the way you are grateful for very few things, completely, without irony, and every single time. The world gave you a cold room. Your own quiet body made it warm. No one taught you that you could do that. You found it out the first hard week, and you have never once stopped being thankful for it. The second mercy is the canary in the morning, 3 floors down.
You have never seen it. You do not know whose it is. Some lodgers on the ground floor, some old man's, or some widow's. A bird in a cage by a window you will never look through. You do not know its color for certain. You only suppose it gold, because the sound of it is gold.
for it sings. In the morning, when the gray first comes to the window, and the house begins its small waking noises, the canary sings, 3 floors down, and through who knows how many walls, thin and high and absurd, a little thread of gold sound, in a gray city that has no business holding anything gold at all. It does not sing for you. It does not know you exist. It sings because it is a canary and the light has come. And that is the whole of what it was made to do. But you hear it, in your cold room, at the end of your cold night. And it is the first beautiful thing of the day, given freely, asking nothing, meant for no one. You have come to wait for it, the way you wait for the stair. That small lift in the chest when it comes, that loosening. On the mornings it is late, you find yourself listening for it. And on the mornings it does not come at all. The bird covered, perhaps, or carried out, or simply silent. The day starts a little colder, a little grayer, and you understand by the lack of it how much the having of it was worth. A bird you will never see, singing for reasons that have nothing to do with you, in a city that vanishes for 4 hours every night, and still, every morning it can, the gold thread of it climbing 3 floors through the walls to find you. That is the second mercy. You do not know its name. You would not trade it for a great many things that have names. The third mercy is the one you almost did not let yourself count, because it frightened you a little to find how much it was worth. It is the 4th stair, and the foot that wakes it.
You have told yourself all this time that it is nothing, a sound in the dark, a stranger coming home, a man you have never met and never will, climbing past your door to a room above yours. You have told yourself you do not care whether he comes or not. But you know better now, lying here, and you will let yourself know it for once, gently, at the very end of the day, where the knowing cannot do you any harm. The foot on the 4th stair is the proof that you are not alone in the dark. That is all it is. That is everything it is. All night, the house is a thing of separate cold rooms, each lodger sealed in his own silence, each of you tiptoeing for the others in a courtesy none of you will ever speak of or be thanked for. And then, in the small hours, the street door and the key that sticks, and the heavy, slow foot finding the 4th tread and waking it, and you lie in your dark, and you think, without ever deciding to, there he is. Not fear, not even quite company, something older and plainer than either, the animal comfort of knowing that behind one of these walls, above one of these ceilings, another warm body has come in out of the cold, and is climbing to its own small pocket of warmth, made the same way you make yours, for the same reasons, against the same dark. You will never speak to him. You do not wish to. The mercy is not in the speaking. The mercy is in the sound. Once a night, reliably, the house tells you in the one voice it has that you are among the living, that the dark is shared, that the cold is shared, that somewhere very close another person is doing the exact thing you are doing, which is staying and being quiet and getting through the night. There he is. 3 small words you say to no one. The third mercy, and the largest of the 3, and the one you guard most carefully, because a thing that means that much is a thing the heart will not say out loud, even to itself, except perhaps here, at the very end, where sleep is close enough to keep the secret safe.
And here is the small grace folded inside the third mercy, the one that carries you over into sleep. The same stair that speaks once in the dark to tell you are not alone will speak again in the morning, many feet this time, the whole house waking and going down it together into the day, so that the last sound of the night and the first sound of the morning are the same sound, the same fourth tread, the same small voice of the house, saying still here, at both ends of the dark.
3 mercies, then. The warmth you make yourself, given back to you by the bed. The gold thread of the canary, given by a bird that does not know your name. The foot on the 4th stair, given by a stranger who does not know he gives it. And given again in the morning, by the whole waking house. Not one of the 3 costs anything. Not one of them was ever meant for you. And all 3 of them are yours. Every night. As reliably as the cold and the pencil and the rung below are yours. The other ledger. The warm one. The one that balances the books just enough that a person can lie down at the end of a hard day and find in the going over of it not only the weight, but the small warm things that make the weight bearable. So you count them, the way you count the coins, once into the palm of the mind, slowly. The bed's warmth, the canary's thread, the foot on the stair, and then again, slower still, because the counting itself is the rest, the same rest the procedure gives, the same rest the going over always gives, the mind laying its small certain things in order, one after another. The warm ones now and not the heavy ones, until the ordering smooths you down, and down, toward the place where the counting stops and does not need to start again until morning. The house sleeps. The house does not. And you lie in the one warm pocket in a cold room, waiting for a gold thread you cannot see, and a footstep you will not answer. And somewhere at the bottom of a box a letter waits. Finished now. 4 lines long. But you do not reach for it tonight. Tonight you have the mercies. Tonight the bed is warm. And the morning will bring the canary. And before the morning, perhaps, the stair will speak and tell you are not alone. And then speak again, at dawn, to tell you the day has come. That is enough. That has always been enough. It is the small warm thing, counted 3 times over in the dark, that lets you stay. And still you stay.
You did not feel yourself fall asleep. No one ever does. There is the counting and the warmth come back into the bed, and the 3 small mercies told over in the dark, and then a soft nothing. The same 4 hours the whole city loses, lost gratefully. And then, without any edge to it, there is gray at the window. Not light yet. The gray of ash gone cold, the gray of unbleached cloth. The room is still cold, but the dark has gone gray, and gray is the first promise the day keeps. The night is over. You came through it. And then 3 floors down, the canary, on time, the thin, high thread of gold sound climbing up through the walls into your cold, gray room. It does not know it is a mercy. It sings because the light has reached its cage. The gray at the window and the gold in the air. That is how the morning always begins. The house wakes around you, and then the stair. In the night it spoke once, a single foot, a single stranger, to tell you that you were not alone in the dark. In the morning it speaks many times over, foot after foot, the whole house going down it into the day, so that the stair that said, "There he is," once, now says, "Still here, still here, still here." The last sound of the night and the first sound of the morning are the same sound. You rise in the gray, the cold water, the cloth, the hair pinned one by one. The box stays closed. The letter is where you left it, 4 lines long, finished, folded, unsent. You do not open it this morning. There is no time and no need, and, if you are honest, no courage yet. But it is written now. That is the thing you carry down the stairs that you did not carry up them.
And at the stairs you do the last thing, the truest courtesy you know. You come to the 4th tread, and you do not step over it. The house is awake now. There is no one left to spare. So you let your own foot fall on the 4th stair, full and plain, and wake it on purpose. Your own voice added to the others. Your own still here struck on the loose board, for whoever lies above you yet, whoever needs, as you needed in the dark, the plain proof that they are not alone. You give back, in the morning, the exact mercy you were given in the night. It is perhaps the whole of what you have to give anyone. A sound on a stair that says to a stranger you will never meet, "I am here. You are not alone. We came through." And you stay. For one more day, you stay. And it is enough. She stayed a great many days in the end. That much the record allows us. But the letter, the 4-line letter, written in pencil, folded along its creases, addressed at last, and never sent. The letter she could not carry down the stairs and feed into the thin black mouth of the pillar box. That letter did not go north. It stayed in the box, at the bottom, under the reels of gray and black and white thread, under the coins told over so many cold nights. It was never posted. And because it was never posted, it survived. It is May of 2026 now. The boarding house is gone. The whole street is gone, taken down a lifetime ago. The ground built over twice since. But a mile east of where it stood, in a reading room kept at a cool and even temperature, in the London Metropolitan Archives, there is a gray archival box on a numbered shelf. It is labeled in pencil, and then in ink, and inside it, wrapped in acid-free tissue, by hands as careful as her mother's, as careful as her own, is a small wooden workbox, with a lid that no longer quite closes.
Someone catalogued it a few winters ago. They lifted the reels of thread and the few coins, and beneath them they found the letter. 4 lines, in pencil, the gray gone soft but legible still. Dear Mother, I have been a long time writing to you. They read all 4 lines, and then they did the only thing left that anyone could do for it. They set a small card beside it, so that the letter would not lie alone on the shelf, so that someone, 150 years on, had read the thing the daughter could not send, and let it be known that it was heard. It is heard now. Tonight, it is heard. So let the house sleep the way it could not while she lay awake in it.
Let the fourth stair go quiet. Let the canary's cage be covered 3 floors down, and the thread of gold be put away until morning. There is one sound, and then a second, and then a third, going soft into the dark. The lid of the box settling. The reel of thread set down. The pencil laid to rest at the bottom, beside 4 lines that found their reader at last. And then nothing. No more sounds. Only the cool, even quiet of a room that keeps things safe. You have walked through a life that has been gone for 150 years. You can let it go now. Sleep well.